Good morning, Charleston, and welcome to the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com. Today, we're going to get into something that doesn't really show up in the MLS data or mortgage charts or really even consumer confidence indexes. It's the emotional undercurrent of the market, the beliefs and the expectations of buyers and sellers and investors, and how those are shaping real estate outcomes right here in Charleston. You know, locally, home values aren't collapsing, but they aren't booming either. Nationally, you know, inventory is building, but transactions aren't really happening at the pace you might expect. And so today, we're going to break down why that is, starting with the fact that confidence, consumer confidence moves first and then transactions follow later. So that's what we're going to talk about today on the Charleston market. We're going to focus on all of that. We're going to talk about why the market feels stuck. We're going to talk about the challenge, and then we're going to talk about the opportunity, right? There's some windows of opportunity that not many people are focused on right now. And I want to help you guys understand where there might be some opportunity for you in this market. Now, for those of you that are listening that have a question that's private, you're thinking of buying or selling or investing, or maybe you have a property that you'd like for us to property manage for you through our property management company, I invite you to reach out to me. Our contact info is as follows. And by the way, this all goes straight to me, even though I have a real estate team and a few companies as a kind of conglomerate real estate team. But if you want to reach out to me personally, my number is 843-800-0065. That's 843-800-0065. Or check us out online on our website, listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. And for those of you that listen to this on the radio station, please know that we also take video while we're here. So we put all of our radio shows into video form, and we put that on YouTube. And then we take the audio, we turn that into a podcast, which you can find on iTunes and Spotify and Google Play and all that great stuff. So let's start with just the national picture on confidence first, right? Despite, I think, what many would say is a modest rise in consumer confidence lately, I would say sentiment remains well below the levels we'd normally associate with a robust economic expansion, right? And that impacts how people view major purchases like homes. So, you know, even though the economy continues to grow, many people are still unsure about committing, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions of dollars to purchase a home. And so let's bring this down to Charleston, right? According to the latest market data, I mean, the average home value in Charleston is sitting somewhere in the mid to upper 500,000s, right around 570, 575. And prices have only gone up 0.3% year over year. And if you look at the median sales price, right, that was the average. The median, Charleston County, is 640, 671. It depends on the report in the neighborhood, because some of this data can get skewed depending upon what their filters are. But, you know, the other thing to watch here is that homes are taking 68, 70 days on the market before going under contract on average, which is a lot slower, of course, than the hyper-competitive market that we saw just a few years ago. And the inventory, you know, that's not tiny anymore either. You know, sellers are finally kind of adding more homes for buyers to choose from, especially when you compare that, of course, to the pre-pandemic scarcity that we had, where, I mean, at one point in time, I remember doing the math, and for existing homes that were on the market, not, you know, homes that can be constructed or homes that were under contract, but available homes, I think there were only like 500 or something of them. Now we've got pretty close to 5,000. So the data is basically telling us two major things. Number one, Charleston prices are stable, not skyrocketing, and homes are taking longer to sell. And both of these point toward hesitation, not collapse, right? So why does the market feel stuck? That's the question. Even with more options and stable pricing, I think a lot of buyers are still waiting for rates to fall dramatically, or affordability to return to 2019 levels, or, you know, prices to drop before they buy. And those beliefs, you know, even if they aren't necessarily rooted in current reality, are powerful enough to slow activity. That's the psychology effect in real estate, where perception becomes reality in the decision-making process. And on the seller side, we see a similar dynamic because, mortgage rates have been elevated for so long. A lot of homeowners are just reluctant to sell and give up their existing really low interest rate. And that keeps some inventory off the market, even though pricing is fairly stable locally and buyers could afford those homes at today's rates, right? So both sides are kind of acting with caution right now, right? And buyers are taking their time because they're trying to, quote unquote, time the bottom or to get a better rate than the current low 6% range, even though we have seen a nice spike in mortgage applications and refinance applications as rates did come down here fairly recently. And I think a lot of sellers are kind of holding to national headlines and wondering if prices are going to dip, even though locally they're holding steady. And I think investors are evaluating risk very seriously right now. And with days on market increasing, they're looking at more aggressively protecting their cash flow, right? And baking that into the deal. So what does that create? It creates a kind of local confidence gap, right? Prices are stable. Mortgage rates have softened a bit. Inventory's rising. But a lot of people still believe that it's too expensive or I should wait for a crash or the market just won't recover anytime soon. And that belief, whether it's right or wrong, slows decision making. And that's exactly why the market feels like it's in a holding pattern, right? So, here's the interesting part, right? Charleston really isn't frozen. It's just behaving normally, right? We're seeing more inventory than we've seen in years, stable prices instead of these huge spikes, right? And longer days on market than, the peak frenzy periods. We're essentially back to where we were before COVID. And I've said that on this program a few times, but transactions are not skyrocketing, right? That's because confidence is still kind of catching up to reality. Buyer confidence isn't strong enough to push offers rapidly for the majority of homes that are on the market. And for those of you that listen to this show, you've heard me talk about the stats that our brokerage has exclusivity to that talk about things like the impact of your initial pricing on your bottom line as to whether you hit the price, right, or if you have to reduce your price and what that ultimately does to your net, and how long it takes you to sell the home, whether you price it correctly or you don't, or the fact that 1 in every 3 properties that hit the market right now are not selling. They're being taken off the market. They either fire the agent, they decide not to sell, they rent it, whatever the case might be. 1 in 3 of them aren't selling. And so what we're seeing instead is, seller confidence just really isn't strong enough to bring all owners off the sidelines. So homes are being basically traded, but at a thoughtful, measured, normal pace, right? This is the market that follows years of dramatic swings. It's a rebalancing market, if you will, right? Remember when I was talking about the projections for 2026 and that it was just going to be a normal market? That's what we're seeing. And so what does that mean? Where does that leave you, right? If you're buyers, I would say that this isn't a race anymore. It's a negotiation, right? With inventory steadily rising and prices being stable here in Charleston, you can be picky. You can be strategic without feeling like you're missing out. And for sellers, your competition isn't necessarily other homes, it's uncertainty. If you price right and market to today's thoughtful, educated buyer, you're going to get attention. But unrealistic pricing still slows down deals. And for investors, I think that the confidence gap creates opportunity. More inventory, stable prices means more leverage on offers and terms, right? Small investors really win when others hesitate, right? There's opportunity amongst the chaos. So if the market feels stuck, now you know why, right? It's not broken, it's psychological. Conflicting beliefs about, I think, affordability and timing and risk are what's slowing decision across the board. And even in a market with real data pointing toward stability. That's, I think, the power of consumer confidence. And it's one of the few things that can really turn the market on a dime. And when confidence ultimately catches up with reality, that's when the market's going to start moving again, right? So if you want to take a deeper dive into your situation, you're thinking of buying, you're thinking of selling, you're looking for some opportunity, first thing I'd say is keep listening, because when we come back, we're going to talk about why I think we're in this kind of, real estate cold war, so to speak, and why nobody wants to be the first to blink. And it's really kind of revolving around stubbornness, if I'm being honest. So we're going to talk more about that, but then we're going to talk about what to do about it, how you can find some opportunity amongst the chaos, or just the normalness of this market. So stick around for more of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show right here on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com. If you want to reach out to me with your real estate questions, or if you're thinking of buying, selling, or investing in real estate, or you'd like for us to manage one of your existing rental properties, we'd love the opportunity to earn your business. You can call or text me directly at 843-800-0065. That's 843-800-0065. Or check us out online at listingsincharleston.com.